Episode 3, The House on the Edge of the Hill. The old house on the hilltop seemed part of the earth itself, as if it had grown from its depths rather than being built by human hands. Its silhouette, drowning in dense morning fog, resembled a ghost clinging to reality. The stone walls, cracked by endless rains and winds, were covered in moss that wove patterns like ancient script. The roof, with rotting tiles, had caved in places, exposing beams that jutted out like the ribs of a long-dead creature. The windows, warped and clouded with age, stared at the world like empty sockets reflecting no light. The wind, howling through the cracks, sang a mournful tune that chilled the blood. This house didn't merely stand on the edge of a cliff, it teetered on the brink of oblivion, balanced between the past and something inexplicable. Locals avoided it, not daring even a fleeting glance. Legends claimed the house was cursed. Tales spoke of people vanishing without a trace, of screams echoing from its walls at night, of shadows flitting across the windows, though. The house had been empty for decades. Elders whispered of murders too horrific to be recorded in chronicles. Some swore they'd seen smoke rising from the ground near the foundation, as if the house breathed infernal heat. No one dared to verify the truth. Fear outweighed curiosity. But James, sitting in his old sedan and gazing at the house through the fog, felt something different. Something drew him inside, as if a voice deep in his mind whispered, "You must enter." Entry into the unknown. James stepped out of the car, and the hill's chill bit into his skin, seeping beneath his coat. The ground underfoot was damp, littered with fallen leaves that rustled like the whispers of the long dead. He approached the porch, and his hand, brushing the rough stone threshold, felt an odd warmth, as if the house retained some remnant of life. The door, heavy and warped, yielded with a long creak that sent shivers down his spine. Inside, he was met with silence, not empty, but thick, sticky, as if the air were comparable to memories of pain and fear. The smell of dampness, mold, and something metallic, perhaps rust. Perhaps blood hit his nostrils. The floorboards groaned beneath his feet, each step echoing with a delay, as if someone mimicked his movements deeper within the house. The walls, clad in darkened wood, were riddled with cracks that seemed to ooze darkness. Dust hung in the air, settling on James' shoulders like an invisible mark. The house left on anyone who dared to enter. He felt this place wasn't merely abandoned, it lived, watching him, weighing his every step. His heart raced, but he couldn't stop. Something inside the house called to him stronger than fear. The Library of Shadows. James ventured deeper, and a corridor led him to a library, a spacious room, where shelves stretched to the ceiling, the air heavy with the scent of old paper and wax. The books, coated in dust, stood unevenly, some leaning as if trying to escape their shelves. Their spines bore faded letters, many in languages James didn't recognize. He ran a finger along one book, and the dust fell away, revealing the title Ars Tenebris. The name stirred an inexplicable unease in him, as if he'd touched something forbidden. The shelves felt like more than a repository, they were guardians, protecting secrets not meant for the light. In the far corner of the room, a staircase led to a narrow balcony where the oldest tomes were kept. James climbed, each step creaking like a moan. On the balcony, he noticed a book set apart as if left for him. Its cover was dark leather, embossed with a symbol, a circle crossed by a diagonal line. He opened it, and the yellowed yet sturdy pages smelled not of paper but of something acrid. Like ash, the first page held no text, only a drawing, a cloaked figure surrounded by fire. James froze. He'd seen this image before in the city library, in records about missing books. Horror in the main room. From the library, James entered the main room, and his gaze immediately fell on a body lying on a faded Persian rug. The sight was staggering. The body was mutilated with such brutality that it barely seemed human. The face, or what remained of it, was a mess of torn skin and exposed bone. The eyes, empty and clouded, stared at the ceiling, and the lips, shredded into tatters, were frozen in a grimace that expressed neither pain nor fear, only emptiness. The victim's arms were spread wide in a ritualistic pose, the legs bent at unnatural angles as if broken deliberately. The blood soaking the rug was impossibly bright, a vivid scarlet, as if it had been spilled moments ago. It spread in patterns that didn't seem random spirals, lines, symbols faintly visible in the dim light. James leaned closer and noticed the blood. Hadn't fully soaked in, it lay on the surface, almost alive, glinting in the faint light. His stomach churned, but he forced himself to examine the body more closely. Among the wounds, he saw strange marks, not cuts, but burns, seared into the skin in the shape of the same crossed circle from the book. This was no ordinary killer's work. Comment describes the library, the discovery of the book with the symbol, and the painting that whispered. James stepped back from the body, and his eyes caught a painting on the wall above the fireplace, framed in a massive cracked frame. The image was chilling a city engulfed in flames, the sky black with smoke. Streets blazed, buildings crumbled. But at the center of the canvas stood a figure blurred, almost invisible, as if dissolved in fog. Its outline shimmered like a mirage, and James swore it moved subtly as he watched. He blinked. But the illusion persisted. The figure wore a cloak, its face hidden by a hood. But its eyes, two pale spots, seemed to stare directly at him. He approached, and the air around the painting grew colder, as if it drew warmth from the room. The flames on the canvas seemed alive, their reflections dancing on the walls despite the lantern being his only light source. James reached out, and his fingers, brushing the frame, felt a vibration, as if the painting breathed. At the bottom edge of the canvas, he noticed a nearly faded inscription, Ignis Eternus, eternal fire. His heart stopped. This painting wasn't mere decor, it was a key. A link between the murder, the house, and the missing books. He recalled an old archive in the city library, where he'd seen a sketch resembling this figure. He hadn't thought much of it then, but now it all connected: the figure, the fire, the symbols. This wasn't just a painting, it was a warning, left by someone who knew what would happen. James felt his thoughts blur, as if the fog from the canvas seeped into his mind. He was certain the figure in the painting was the same one behind Haley's death, the missing books, and this murder. Traces that defy explanation. Inspecting the room, James noticed odd stains on the floor, unlike blood. They were pale, almost translucent, like marks left by evaporated liquid. They stretched from the body to the fireplace where the painting hung, vanishing at the wall as if they'd dissolved into the air. He ran a finger over one stain, and the tip of his finger reddened, as if burned. This wasn't a substance, but an energy, a trace of something not of this world. His gaze returned to the body, and he saw that the burns on the victim's skin mirrored the stain's pattern circles crossed by lines. The room was too clean for such a crime. There were no signs of a struggle, no fingerprints, only those strange stains. The furniture, an old sofa, a cabinet cluttered with papers, stood untouched, as if the killer had moved silently, touching nothing but the victim. James knelt by the rug and noticed a crumpled, blood-soaked paper beneath the body. He carefully pulled it out and unfolded it. On it was a drawing, the same symbol, a circle with a cross, and beside it, a note, truth in fire. The ink was fresh, as if written just before his arrival. A dark legacy. James realized this murder wasn't just a crime, but part of a ritual begun long before his time. The house wasn't merely a place, it was an altar where fates, secrets, and forces he was only beginning to grasp converged. The missing books he'd learned about in the library were here, in this house, or at least their traces were. He recalled Haley's notes, books holding knowledge, of rituals capable of tearing reality apart. Their disappearance wasn't random, someone was seeking them to finish what had been started, and this murder was a step toward that goal. He returned to the library and began searching the shelves. Among the books, he found a diary hidden behind a row of tomes. Its pages were filled with notes written in a trembling hand. The author, judging by the signature, was the house's last occupant, Edward Crow, a scholar who vanished 20 years ago. Crow wrote of books he'd found in the house's basement, of symbols that burned in his dreams, of a voice calling him to the fire. The final entry read, "They will return. The fire does not lie." James felt the house closing in around him. The shadows in the corners grew thicker, the air heavier, as if someone breathed down his neck. He knew the killer, or whatever stood behind it, was still here, in these walls, in these books, in that painting. Each step brought him closer to the truth, but also to a danger that grew with every moment. On the brink, James stood in the center of the room, surrounded by a silence that now felt alive, pulsing. He was no longer just a detective investigating a murder, had become part of an ancient story stretching across centuries. The house, the books, the painting, the body, all were links in a chain leading to a truth too terrifying to accept. His honed intuition screamed that he was on the cusp of a discovery that would change everything: his life, the city, his very understanding of reality. He knew he couldn't leave. The mystery of this house, like the mystery of the library, was now his fate. With each new clue, the stains, the symbol, the diary's line, she sank deeper into a labyrinth where past and present merged. And the truth was more dangerous than any weapon. The murder was only the beginning, and James sensed that behind it lay something capable of consuming not just him, but everything he knew.